I never believed in signs until I opened that glove compartment. It was late, maybe past midnight, and the rain had turned into a slow drizzle outside. I was sitting in the passenger seat of our Camry, trying to find a charger. Megan had just gone inside the house, complaining about a migraine. That's when I saw them. Two concert tickets, their glossy surfaces catching the dashboard light. Vegas, in bold font, nestled between folded maps and expired insurance papers. A weekend I knew she was supposed to be on a business trip in Dallas. The company retreat. She even mentioned the goddamn client dinner and a hotel with no windows. But the tickets weren't booked under her name. I stared at them, motionless, as the realization slowly sank into my skin like cold rainwater. There wasn't even an ounce of hesitation. I went upstairs, kissed her forehead, and told her I hoped she felt better soon. Then I walked into the bathroom, locked the door, and started the background work. I needed to know more, because suspicion wasn't enough. It never is. I synced her phone to my laptop. She didn't even question why I wanted her to leave it behind the next morning when she went to get coffee. Said something about wanting to disconnect for once. Cute. She forgot that apps sync automatically if you've got admin access. 10 minutes later, I watched a blinking dot slide across the I-5 South. The destination? Los Angeles, not Dallas. And the name in the message thread? Kevin, saved as L.A. lawyer. What a cliche. The messages weren't subtle. Screenshots confirmed the tone. Don't forget the beach dress, he wrote. I want to see that smile under the pier. Pier, not boardroom. I checked her suitcase after she left. Brand new, tag still hanging from the handle. Inside a beach dress, never worn. That night I stayed up, dialing every hotel she might plausibly be at until one receptionist confirmed it. A suite for two under Megan W. I said I was her brother. Forgot my ID. Wanted to leave a package. She gave me the room number. 2 hours later, I was in the hotel restaurant across the street, a pressed shirt, blazer, and nerves dressed to match. I watched through a thin gap between curtains from the upper level. There they were, Megan and Kevin, her head tilted back in laughter, his hand resting on her thigh. I snapped the picture with the zoom lens on my phone. My hands didn't shake. My pulse didn't race. I felt nothing. That might have scared me more than anything else. I returned home. Didn't say a word. We had dinner like usual. Grilled salmon, her favorite. She talked about how the meeting went well. She even made up names. I checked them online. No LinkedIn profiles, no websites, nothing. Fabrications, woven on instinct. Later that night, while she was asleep, I accessed her emails, cloned them all to a flash drive, wiped the browsing history. She'd been transferring small amounts, $700 here, $950 there, to an account I didn't know existed, and she was good at hiding it. Labels like tax overflow, marketing reserve, enough to slide under the radar unless you were looking for it. The next morning I called the bank, said I was concerned about fraud. They verified everything after a bit of maneuvering. I put a freeze on the transfers. She still smiled at breakfast. For days I carried on as usual, dropping our son off at school, syncing our shared grocery lists, fixing the water filter she'd been complaining about. But something inside me had cracked. I couldn't stop replaying the laugh, the tilt of her head toward him, the way she said his name like he'd been part of her life for months, maybe years. That night I stood in our garage with the lights off, watching the reflection of our family photo in the car window. I remembered how she laughed on our wedding day. It didn't sound the same anymore. The next day I drove past Kevin's office building. He was listed under a private consulting firm that dabbled in cross-border risk mitigation, whatever the hell that meant. I found their receptionist's number and booked an appointment using a new alias. Arthur Gray, independent consultant. I created fake documents, an email signature, even a background website. If they ran a check, it would pass. Barely. The appointment was confirmed. I was already halfway down a rabbit hole, and the deeper I dug, the less air I felt around me. This wasn't just infidelity. This was planning, financing, strategizing. She wasn't just hiding another man. She was hiding a version of herself that I didn't recognize. And I wasn't even angry, just focused. The next few days would give me all the ammunition I needed to prepare my second life, one where I would no longer be the passive, naive husband in the background of someone else's story. I was about to write the opening line of a narrative that ended on my terms, and she would never see it coming. The man calling himself Kevin West had changed his legal name 3 times in the past 15 years. Each alias came with a fresh trail of unpaid credit cards, dissolved LLCs, and vague accusations of embezzlement that somehow never quite made it to court. It didn't take long for me, Arthur Gray, according to the name on the burner ID in my wallet, to learn that he specialized in hiding money and dodging oversight. He was exactly the kind of man you only trusted if you had something to hide, which explained why Megan had trusted him completely. I sat across from a junior associate at his firm, pretending to need advice on asset distribution for a high-risk client. The girl, nervous and eager to impress, gave away more than she realized. She mentioned Kevin's expertise with foreign asset buffering and domestic tax minimization, buzzwords laced with off-the-record meanings. I smiled, nodded, and feigned curiosity about legal thresholds while memorizing every name she casually dropped. When she stepped out to make copies, I reached into my coat pocket and flipped the recorder hidden inside my thermos to a higher sensitivity setting. That afternoon, I waited in my car down the block from Kevin's apartment, a cramped loft perched above a dusty tax services office, the kind with one flickering neon open sign and a front window stuffed with curling flyers. His window opened to a fire escape. I made the climb just after midnight, careful not to make a sound as I tucked the thermos under the metal slats. It had been modified by my friend Joel, an ex-IT guy turned paranoid survivalist, to record directional sound at a 15-foot range. For 3 nights, the recorder picked up low voices, rustling papers, snippets like Caymans and offshore bundles, and just keep it quiet, Meg. By the 4th night, I'd filled an entire drive with compressed audio logs. If this ended up in court, they wouldn't just be unfaithful, they'd be criminals. The next step involved a different battlefield. Megan's LinkedIn profile had always been clean, professional, boring even. But people love a good rumor, and corporate paranoia spreads like fire in a dry forest. Under the name Elliot Burns, I created a fake account, Talent Acquisition, specializing in discrete career transitions for executives facing internal tension. I began posting vague but suggestive updates, tagging Megan's company and referencing whispers of compliance breaches and whispers of financial misconduct. I added coworkers she rarely mentioned. Then I commented beneath her manager's post about integrity and leadership with a carefully crafted question. What are your internal audit teams doing to reduce exposure? Within 48 hours, Megan's profile views tripled. The corporate whispers had begun. But that wasn't enough. I wanted certainty, proof that would shred the layers of lies she wrapped herself in each morning before greeting me at the breakfast table. Joel helped again. He didn't ask questions, just smiled through his unshaven beard and muttered about karma. Together, we cracked her old iCloud account. The backups were outdated but revealing. Photos, voice memos, and one video. It was shot in a bedroom, not ours. Kevin was holding the phone. Megan, in nothing but a silk robe, waved at the camera like it was a casual vacation video. The intimacy in their voices wasn't new. This wasn't a fling. This was something with history. I sat there in silence, watching them laugh about how stupid I must be, how easy it is to fool a man who trusts too much. Kevin made a joke about my cooking. Megan called me loyal, the kind of word you use for a golden retriever. That night, I transferred ownership of our house into my sister's name. Legally, it was a gift of equity, enough of a loophole to preserve the roof over my son's head when the explosion finally happened. Megan would never see it coming. I had the deed notarized under the glow of a strip mall notary's neon sign, the woman barely glancing at the documents as she stamped them. At home, I installed new security cameras, one in the hallway, another in the garage, and one hidden behind a canvas painting of a fruit bowl in the kitchen. It had a wide field of view, perfect for capturing everyday betrayal. By then, I had stopped speaking more than necessary. Megan didn't seem to notice. She was busy preparing for her next client trip. A new rolling bag arrived via Amazon, which she unboxed with the enthusiasm of a child opening a birthday gift. She didn't see me watching from the hallway as she stuffed it with new lingerie. I decided to simulate a cyber attack on our shared Gmail account. I used a proxy service and bounced the IP off a server in Serbia, then triggered 2 failed login attempts using a clone phone. When she received the alert, she immediately changed the password and sent Kevin a message. "Can we delete everything? I think someone's trying to access our stuff." I screenshot the message before she deleted it. Then I logged in anyway. By now, the web of deceit she'd built had turned into a mural. Each line, each password, each conversation, copied, time-stamped, encrypted, stored under an anonymous server Joel had created years ago when he thought the government was reading his email. I guess sometimes paranoia pays off. While she slept, I added the finishing touch. A remote backup scheduled to trigger the moment I submitted the divorce, a digital kill switch, a time capsule of treason. On Thursday, I packed my son's things under the guise of an impromptu vacation. He asked if we were going to see Grandma. I said yes. His teacher had already been notified. We were temporarily transferring schools due to logistical reasons. She was understanding. She always liked me. Before dawn, I loaded the car and drove him to my sister's place 2 towns over. He asked where Mom was. "She had to finish work," I said. He nodded, then looked out the window in silence. Back home, Megan was preparing for her red-eye to San Francisco. Her bag was zipped, her phone cleared of text history. I knew every detail of her plan before she did. I watched her from the hallway as she applied lipstick in the mirror. She didn't notice the camera behind the canvas. Didn't know the kitchen was listening. She wouldn't realize the IRS had received a tip 2 days ago about suspicious activity from her LLC, or that the SEC had quietly begun pulling up her transaction logs, thanks to a carefully written report I submitted under Arthur Gray's consulting firm. She wouldn't see the cracks until they broke the floor beneath her, and I would still be smiling at dinner. Our wedding anniversary fell on a Saturday that year, a detail Megan hadn't bothered to mention. I let her think I forgot, just like she let me believe in Kevin's non-existence. For days, she dropped hints like crumbs. Maybe we should celebrate next week. Maybe a quiet dinner after her trip. She said she was swamped with work. I nodded, kissed her cheek, and told her not to worry. Meanwhile, I was preparing for war. The restaurant was a quiet Italian place in the next district, nestled between a bridal boutique and an old bookstore. I picked it precisely because it had a private dining room, and the manager, an old friend from college, was more than willing to cooperate. I gave him the flash drive in advance. It was labeled only with a date and time. That evening, I told Megan we were going out. Nothing special, just dinner. She wore the blue dress I always loved, her attempt maybe to appear innocent. I complimented her, played my role like a seasoned actor, and we drove off in silence while our son stayed with my sister. When we arrived, she looked genuinely confused. She wasn't expecting guests. Her expression twisted when her parents walked in, her mother clutching a gift bag, her father stiff in posture, but hollow in his stare. Her sister followed, and then her cousin. One by one, faces from her past filled the room. Megan smiled weakly, confused, but said nothing. We ate in near silence. The only sound was cutlery against porcelain and awkward attempts at conversation. Megan looked at me more than once, trying to read my face, but I gave her nothing until dessert. The lights dimmed, the waiter brought out tiramisu, and my friend, the manager, rolled in a projector cart. "Just a short video," I said lightly, standing. "Something personal for our anniversary." The screen lit up with footage of a beach, sunlight glinting off the waves, Megan's laughter echoing faintly over the speakers. Her father smiled, but then the camera shifted, zoomed in. There she was, arms wrapped around Kevin, their bodies pressed together beneath a patio umbrella, kissing like no one else existed. The video cut to Kevin's apartment footage, grainy audio clips of their whispers, his voice talking about moving assets, Megan's voice confirming transfers. Then the iCloud video played. No one spoke. No one even moved. Her mother's hand trembled before she placed her spoon down with a soft clink. Her father stood and walked out silently. Her mother slammed the table with her fist. Megan lunged for the projector cart. "Turn it off! This is private," she barked. But the security guard, the one I'd paid in advance, stepped between her and the cart. "Please return to your seat, ma'am." She looked at me, tears flooding her eyes. "You did this." I smiled gently. "No, Megan, you did." She didn't speak again. She just stared at the table, breathing shallowly, while the guests began to leave one by one. Her sister couldn't look at her. Her cousin mumbled something and followed the others. Only Megan remained when the lights came back up. That night, I filed a complaint with the SEC, attaching every financial document I'd gathered. I submitted tip forms to the IRS and the state's Financial Crimes Division. I flagged suspicious transfers, tax irregularities, and unnamed beneficiaries. At home, I changed the locks. The smart system, controlled by an app on my phone, was now synced only to my fingerprint and my sister's. I removed her access from every smart lock, every device, every shared calendar. I posted a notice to the front door stating that Megan Whitmore no longer resided at this address and that the property was under ownership review. I gathered every family photo and packed them away, leaving only the ones of our son. His drawing still hung on the fridge, untouched. The next morning I contacted the police, reported the situation, presented documentation showing the house was no longer legally co-owned. Megan had no legal access to the property. I requested that if she attempted entry, she be warned and removed. Later that day, I submitted a custody petition. The evidence package was thick: recordings, videos, screenshots of her messaging Kevin during school hours, missing pickups, inappropriate funds used from joint accounts. I included the financial manipulation, the fake business trips, and everything tied to the unstable web she'd woven around our child's life. That evening, I stood in our living room and fed every shared contract we ever signed into the shredder. Insurance policies, joint account agreements, travel itineraries, even old love notes. I didn't pause, didn't flinch. The past was burning one strip at a time. At the bank the next morning, I transferred power of attorney to my sister. Megan's name was stripped from every joint account. Even the savings plan for our son now existed in a trust she couldn't touch. The clerk gave me a look, probably thinking it was an overreaction. But then again, people like Megan always look normal until the truth unfolds. I removed her from our family insurance plan and filed the documentation with her employer. Under policy compliance, I was required to notify them of fraudulent activity affecting dependents. I sent the file with a redacted version of the SEC complaint. And finally, when every bridge was soaked in gasoline and ready to burn, I sent Megan a package. It was a small black box. Inside was a folded note, divorce papers, a copy of the home transfer deed, the flash drive from the dinner, and a single USB labeled, "This is your gift." Later that night, I sat alone at the dining table. The silence was heavy, the kind that presses into your lungs when you try to breathe. A photo of my son stood nearby, his crayon drawing of a rocket taped to the corner. There were no apologies. No dramatic confrontations, just the clean, surgical end of a marriage built on illusion. I didn't text her, I didn't call, but I knew she'd read every word of that note, and I knew she'd press play. She came back the next morning, not alone. 2 officers stood beside her at the gate, one male, one female, both stiff with protocol. Megan's voice carried across the lawn as she pointed at the door, clutching a leather folder to her chest. Her eyes were puffy, red. She looked like someone who hadn't slept since the night of our anniversary dinner. She probably hadn't. I stepped outside before they knocked. "Mr. Whitmore," the male officer began, "your wife claims you've denied her access to your child in residence." I handed him the folder I had been waiting to deliver. It held the notarized temporary custody documents, bank records, audio transcripts of Megan admitting in her own words that she couldn't be responsible for our son while handling confidential financial dealings. There was also a brief note from our son's teacher stating that Trevor had requested a temporary academic transfer for emotional stability. The officer read silently. His partner glanced at Megan, then back to me. "Is the child present?" she asked. "No," I replied calmly. "He's with family, and he's safe." Megan took a step forward. "Trevor, we need to talk about this. You can't just—" "I can," I said. And I did. And the court will finish the rest. They didn't arrest her. There was nothing criminal about heartbreak, but they told her to leave. She didn't argue, just turned around and walked back to her car. One of the officers stayed to watch her go. The next few weeks moved faster than I expected. Her firm suspended her. Turns out when the SEC starts poking around, companies distance themselves fast. Her emails had triggered internal investigations, and one compliance officer, after seeing the evidence I shared, froze several of her projects. Clients dropped her, some threatened lawsuits. Meanwhile, my world began to rebuild itself. Parents from my son's new school reached out, first in curiosity, then in compassion. I shared little, but I listened. One father, Mark, shared a story almost too similar to mine. Wife, infidelity. Children caught in the middle. He had started a small group for fathers navigating betrayal. I joined, quietly at first. Then I had an idea. I began working late at night after I put my son to sleep. I bought a domain, designed a platform, uploaded resources, legal checklists, journal templates, links to trauma counselors, tools to track school changes and custody paperwork. I titled it, Anchor for Fathers Rebuilding. Within 2 months, the page had over 3,000 visitors. Schools began referring families. Teachers reached out asking for volunteer material. I created downloadable printouts for kids dealing with household disruption. I wasn't a therapist, but I had lived the process, and that was enough. Then came the final hearing. Megan contested. Of course she did. Claimed emotional distress. Claimed the house should have been co-owned regardless of paperwork. Claimed she was manipulated, confused, under pressure. But judges don't care about stories. They care about evidence. I had every message, every transfer, every video, every forged trip. Her company's own HR department testified to her suspension. I didn't speak much during the proceedings. I didn't need to. The gavel fell just past noon. Full custody, sole parental authority, no spousal support, no visitation without court-supervised mediation. She didn't cry until the court adjourned. She followed me outside, walking fast in heels that made too much noise on marble. Trevor, wait. Please, I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't stop walking. I didn't look back. Outside, the sky was clear. I moved to Seattle 3 weeks later. A friend I met through Anchor helped me rent a studio near Capitol Hill. I turned it into a workshop for kids, STEAM learning, small robotics, interactive storytelling. My son joined the after-school programs and made friends in days. We built a weather balloon together, tied it to a camera rig, sent it into the sky, and watched it vanish beyond the clouds. For the first time in months, I laughed without restraint. I received one more letter from Megan that August. No return address, just a folded card, handwritten in tight, nervous script. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I stood at the edge of the dock, card in hand. My son called out from the lake. Ready! He was already crouched beside the drone, the same one we'd been assembling for weeks, a sleek carbon rig with blue wings and a mounted HD cam. He'd painted our initials on the side, his in bubble letters, mine in tiny block print. I dropped the envelope into the trash, walked down the dock, and knelt beside him. Hit it, I said. The drone hummed, blades spinning faster until it launched upward, lifting clean into the air. My son raised his arms, cheering as it soared past the treetops, past the lake's edge, past every line she ever crossed. We watched it together, eyes squinting into the sunlight, until it disappeared into the open blue sky. That's all for now, folks. Thank you for being with me today and listened. And if you liked my story, please subscribe, hit the like button, and comment below what you think about all this and what would you do if you were me. Also, don't forget to check my other stories in description below.